It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha! Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brouhaha. Marshall Wood and Dale McKee with you one more time. Dale, man, good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
Good to be seen, man. Good to be here. Football,
please.
man. Football going on. Getting excited.
We're fixing to get into some serious stuff here. These exhibition games are fixing to go away.
They're fixing to go away.
High school level, college level, you know. Let's get into the real.
Get in a real deal going on. Looking at your sideline view, big offensive second half for the Rebels.
They look ready. I mean, they just made big plays, you know. I mean, that was the difference between them and I guess State and especially USM. I mean, you got to make plays, and they had some guys that make some plays for them.
Man, they sure did. What did I see here? Where 6 or 7 offensive possessions in the second half scored on?
Yeah, that's always
that's
good.
Almost perfect.
Yeah, I mean it is, and of course, you know, a lot of that was Tech. Tech, I thought, did pretty good on offense. I thought Ole Miss was a little weak on the inside there. I thought Tech ran real well inside against them, and I'm sure this week when they go to Alabama's going to run that way too.
Well, we'll find out. The Rebels will find out. Looking over at Mississippi State with their, couple games in, they had a tough outing against the Tigers. Question for you.
Yes.
Mike Leach, air raid guy, recruit these players, get a new coach, move away. I'm under the impression that if you're recruiting for a certain time of offense, for a certain type of offense, you need to play that type of offense. And would it be safe to say that with the kind of change in offensive format or concepts up there at State that they may be playing with some guys that weren't recruited for that type of offense, you think?
I think when State signed Leach to a contract, they bought into that offense.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be hard for them to get out. Now, I even heard some people on Facebook, and I could not believe this.
On Facebook?
Well, some of my Mississippi State fans, they were posting Saturday, we need to change quarterbacks. And I'm thinking, no, we don't need to change quarterback. You got an all SEC quarterback.
Yeah.
And you're going to change. Now, I think they shouldn't have completely gone away from the air raid. I think they should bring a portion of it back because they're struggling on offense. They didn't get 200 yards against LSU, but now I'll be honest with you.
LSU's got a pretty good team now.
Yeah, now LSU stubbed their toe against Florida State, and others may stub their toe against Florida State too. I'm not sure yet, but I'm not so sure. And I know this is perceiving, but I'm not so sure Georgia's number one team in the country this week.
Yeah. After
this past week's results. And if you look around, if Georgia is not the best team in the SEC, who would be the second best? And right now, I'd have to hand it to LSU.
Yeah.
Just because of what they did to Mississippi State. Mississippi State's not that bad a football team. But Mississippi State is going to a lot of teams don't understand. If you don't move the ball on offense, you're putting a lot of pressure on your defense. Plus, there's a battle for field position.
Yeah.
I've seen games here recently in high school, field positions decide the game. I mean, guys are going 45, 50 yards for touchdown drives, and the other team's going 80. That's a lot of difference, that 25 or 30 yards. Yeah. That's 2 or 3 first downs in there, So I'm just saying, I just think they got to get the offense fixed and not put so much pressure on the defense. Now, the defense is not bad at State.
Yeah.
But you look at a lot of defenses like Ole Miss's defense. Georgia Tech's quarterback, I thought, hurt them in key situations running the football. Well, if Melrose plays for Alabama,
And he probably will.
he will run. The following week, Ole Miss has to play LSU. Jaden Daniels is going to run, and he usually is pretty good at when he runs. He doesn't get 1 or 2 yards. He gets big play, big chunks. Then the following week they play KJ Jefferson from Arkansas, and that guy's like 6'4" and 240 pounds. He'll
run too.
He'll run slam over you, you know. So the SEC, it's just you've got to have that quarterback that can do both, because Ole Miss struggled at Tulane. They struggled kind of in Oxford until Dart started taking off from that quarterback spot. And that's what made them go in the second half. Because all of a sudden, has Ole Miss got problems in the running game? I don't think they got problems. I think they need to get some people healthy.
I want to go back to Will Rogers. You talk about, and I'm not hating, it's just questions. You talk about you've either run an air raid offense or you don't. Some quarterbacks are air raid quarterbacks and some ain't. Some are air raid quarterbacks can be another style of quarterback. So we don't know. I mean, Will Rogers is a system quarterback so far.
Sure.
And so we don't, he may not can do it.
Well, let me ask you a question.
I don't know.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I believe Will Rogers can still come back for one more year because of the pandemic year. So in telling you that, if he decides to come back next year, does he go in the transfer portal so he can go to an air raid offense?
If he wants to play at the next level and get the numbers, I would say, yeah, he better.
So
What do you think?
Well, I think he needs to do what's best for him.
Yeah, which is if he wants to play at the next level, if he's an air raid quarterback, he needs to go where he can excel. If he wants to get to the next level. You agree or disagree?
Sure.
Yeah. What's he going to do?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there. What would you what would you do?
In today's markets, you got to go. If you want to go that. Me, I wouldn't care because I ain't no professional football player. But for somebody that could play at the next level, to play at the next level, you got to succeed at where you are. And if you're in the wrong kind of offense for your talents, then if you want to play at the next level, you got to get to where you can perform.
Well, I think there's a place for Will in the NFL. And that may not be as a starter.
Yeah.
But, there's quarterbacks similar to Will that come into certain games, like Gardner Minshew came in for Anthony Richardson in Houston Sunday, and he's kind of he's
an air raid guy.
He's Mike Leach guy, and so he just kind of spreads it around, and this is not what we prepared for.
But he's played at the next level outside of the air raid because he didn't get exposed to the air raid until he transferred from East Carolina. So, I don't know. I think he and Will are different. But anyway. I tell you what, we got a guest tonight. I like talking about this, and I like Mississippi State. I'm not hammering on the individual now. I love that guy's a fine guy. Just talking about concepts and how they work. Speaking of which, we got a guest tonight, I suppose.
We do?
I don't know.
Good. I'm glad.
Who we got?
Chris Snowpeck.
Chris Snowpeck. Tell us about Chris.
Well, Chris is a former Ole Miss Rebel baseball player. He played 4 or 5 years in the major leagues for the Chicago White Sox and had some time he spent in Boston with the Red Sox. So he's going to talk to us a lot about baseball, Major League Baseball, maybe the pennant races, the playoffs, and he's also going to talk a little bit about college baseball. And
cool.
And he does a lot of, giving lessons, and he's going to tell us about some of the, maybe good high school, why we have such good high school baseball now in Mississippi.
Well, that'll be interesting. So I'll tell you what, let's don't waste any time. Let's take a break to hear from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be back with tonight's guest, Chris Snowpeck, right after this break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Chris. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm good, guys. How are y'all?
I'm doing good. Anyway, we've already introduced you as a former Ole Miss Rebel and Major League Baseball player, and so we just want to know a little something about you. How'd you get your start in baseball, and where you from? You just don't have a common Mississippi name, like a Jones or a Smith or something like that, So, so just tell us a little bit about your background there.
Yeah, I grew up in a little town north of Lexington, Kentucky. Her name is Cynthiana, and you just grew up there. Great small town, and it became a baseball. I had two uncles that coached baseball, and my mom's brothers, and Jimmy was my little league coach and was really a disciplinarian, very good coach. And then when I got to high school, my other uncle was the high school coach, Mac, and he's actually the all-time winningest coach in Kentucky high school baseball history right now. So, it's a small community that rallies around the high school, like a lot of communities here in Mississippi, and baseball started to take off. And when I was a sophomore, we played in the state championship, got beat in the state championship. I want to say a couple of years before that, we won the state championship, but I think they've won 4 or 5 since. But just a really good community, place of basketball. But anyway, Ole Miss saw me play in Nashville, I think my junior summer, and I really didn't know much about Ole Miss. I mean, I wanted to go to Kentucky. When you grow up an hour from campus, everybody loves the blue and basketball and all that stuff. And all I knew about Mississippi was Elvis. I think Elvis was from Tupelo, and that's all I knew at the time, man. And I had an offer from Western Kentucky. I had a couple other offers, I think small colleges, and Larry Simcox and Jake Gibbs. Jake Gibbs was the head coach. Larry had asked me to come visit Ole Miss, and there's a guy named Kurt Purdom who's from Owensboro High School, and they had asked him to come on a visit as well. And so we both came down, and as soon as I got to campus, guys, it was all over. They had a brand new stadium at the time. I think the first, my first fall was 1989, and so I think that was the second or third year of the stadium. And the school was, I didn't know much. I was going there to play baseball, guys. I didn't know. School was secondary, but I knew that the SEC was, they're part of the SEC, and it was a very vibrant community. A lot of kids at school, and I was the only thing I did. They asked me to play third base. I wasn't real excited about it, but I knew that if I had a chance to start as a freshman, I'd play third base. And I got drafted out of high school by the Texas Rangers. Almost signed with them in the 11th round, but I was scared to death. And Jake Gibbs actually called me the night before I was going to sign and said, "Look, if you don't sign with the Rangers, we'll up your scholarship." And so, sure enough, they did, and I signed with Ole Miss. And my first year, I barely knew anybody. I mean, all I knew was my teammates. And I think I hit 240, 250. It was a hard year. I remember facing. I think Mississippi State had a pitcher, Bobby Reed. I think it was Jody Reed. I can't remember who it was, but he had a full-blown mustache, and I was just a freshman, about $160, $150, 150 pounds, and I see this big dude on the mound with a full mustache. I'm thinking, guys, I'm in some kind of adult league or something. I didn't know what to think, but every weekend was a challenge. I mean, we were playing in Baton Rouge, and their pitchers were amazing, and they got 6 inches off the plate, and I'm like, how am I going to hit here, So you just survived, and I did, my first couple years at Ole Miss. Started, back then in the early 90s, strength and conditioning weren't really important. I mean, our weight room was behind the first base dugout at Ole Miss. I think we had 4 or 5 machines. Now they got, $15 million facilities. But anyway, my roommate was Brian Sylvia, who was from Columbia, Mississippi. He and Vance Holland. I think Vance is from Meadville. And so Brian challenged me. He got stronger. I got stronger. I go lift weights with him, and that kind of was really one of the things that really helped me. The Lord used that, and really the summer before my junior year, I played out at St. Joe, Missouri, in the Jayhawk League. It's a college league, and I knew I could hit. My first year as Ole Miss, for some reason, I just couldn't get it going. And then that summer, I started finding it. And then came back that fall, had a good fall. And then that spring, I think I hit 408, 409, I can't remember what it was. And Lord just really opened the door for me. And I met my future wife, Carla, that kind of late in that fall. And so she really got me focused. Everything just came together perfect. And I got drafted by the White Sox that spring in 92, 6th round, I believe. Warren Hughes was my scout. He's out of Mobile, Alabama. He's from Australia, but great guy. That's kind of started my pro career. You guys want me to keep going, or do I need to take a break?
Yeah,
You're doing great, man. You're doing awesome.
No,
you can keep us shut up,
Okay.
God. You're doing great.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah. So, I'm with the White Sox. I was a little, they told me I was going to get drafted. They thought I would get drafted, first 3 rounds. And after about 2 hours into the draft, I didn't get a phone call, and I was sweating bullets.
Oh, man.
And anyway, they got me in the 6th round. It kind of really, when people pass up on you, it kind of motivates you. So when I signed with the White Sox, they sent me to Florida. One of the first guys I met was our minor league director, a guy named Buddy Bell. Buddy played with the Reds. Y'all might know him. He kind of, I had a really good first. It was kind of a mini camp. I had a good first mini camp, and as y'all know, first impressions are huge. That was huge for me. Went to Utica, New York, for my first team. That was the New York 10 League short season. I think I led the team in RBIs. I think I hit 280. It didn't sound like it was a high average, but for that first short season, they were impressed, which was a blessing. The fall, he came back that fall, played in the instructional league, which is a league for, the White Sox prospects to work on their game. The next spring, went to South Bend, Indiana. Stayed there a month. I think I hit 6 home runs, 5 home runs. It got hot, and then I got sent to Sarasota, which is the Florida State League. And so if you visualize, back in the day, back 30 years ago, minor league baseball, there's different levels of A ball. There's, low A, middle A, high A. The Florida State League was usually high A, and that's where I went. Spent the rest of the summer there. It was so hot in Florida, I was ready to go back and leave. I think I ended up hitting 15 home runs that year. Had a good year, but I think I probably lost 10 pounds from all that sweat. But it was hard. That was, looking back at that was one of those years. It was tough. Just because I never really, that was my first full season, 150 games, 160, whatever, how many games.
Man.
And, I remember playing in Clearwater against the Phillies. And I think I was struggling at the time, maybe, 2 from my last 17. And our hitting rover, in minor leagues, they have rovers, guys that specialize in certain categories of baseball. Like they'll have a pitching rover, hitting rover, a fielding rover, base running. And they come in probably once a month, once a quarter to kind of get with players, prospects. And anyway, our hitting rover came into Clearwater and said, look, I came here specifically to watch you and watch you struggle. I want to see how you're going to handle struggling. And, for me, at the time, I'm like, number one, I was a little upset because I was struggling, but I'm thinking, you're supposed to be here encouraging me. You're telling me you're here to see me struggle. And so, but that was the big deal in pro ball because, those guys, it's all about surviving. Y'all know that. And so I didn't know that. And it's all about looking back at it. They were there to see how everybody's in a good mood when you're doing good. They wanted to see how I was doing when I was dealing with failing. And, and going back, the Lord used that, and I had a pretty good year. And so went into that fall, starting to move up the prospect chain at the White Sox organization. Went to spring training in '94. That was the year Michael Jordan signed with the White Sox. It was an absolute circus.
I bet it was.
And so, we were there. I was 24 years old, and so we had a really good AA team. They put me on the Birmingham roster for spring training, and we would be in the outfield, working on hitting at 1:30 in the afternoon. And the big team, Major League teams, if you ever been to Sarasota, the stadium, we were hitting on the field behind center field. Like, they have the stadium field, and all the little fields are behind it. And we were like little kids, man. We would lay on our stomach because you can look under the windscreen and watch the big league guys play, and we wanted to see what Jordan did every time. And anyway, that was cool for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden Terry Francona was our manager, he pulled us together as a group and said, guys, I got some news for you. And we were thinking, man, you make us run, or what do we do wrong? He goes, guys, I'm just letting you know that Michael Jordan is going to be joining our team tomorrow. And we're like, and so we didn't know what to do. And so, when we were there without Michael, we maybe have 10 or 15 people come watch us work out, us minor leaguers. And then when Jordan joined us, it was, 2,000 to 3,000. That's like going, from a 12-year-old rec game in Laurel, to going to Friday Night Football. It's the environment completely changed.
Man.
And so it was, I'll never forget that first game. I think he hit a double, or I was on second base, and I was getting my lead, and Michael was hitting. And, I played basketball from Kentucky, so I knew all about him. And everybody knew about him. He was, he was probably the best ever. And here I am at second base taking my lead. I'm like, Michael Jordan's getting ready to hit me in. I'm thinking, what is going on here? And so that was the mindset for like the first 2 months. It was absolute chaos. It was so much fun.
Wow.
Francona was perfect. They knew that Francona could balance, the atmosphere of media, and then, he would protect, Michael as much as he could. And it worked out. It was, Birmingham was great. Oakley, the sunglasses, Oakley, he had a deal with Michael, and so they would come in like every time we were home, and Nike would come in every time we were at home, and so he would really, he helped us all out. I mean, I got an Oakley and Nike contract when I was in AA.
Wow.
And that, that kind of followed me all through the major leagues. But, looking back at it, that was kind of the Lord used that to kind of prepare some of us who did reach the major leagues, what the media would look like and all that, that stuff. And so, that whole summer, we go to Chattanooga and have a 1 o'clock game, and there's 3,000 people. And I played with him also in Arizona that fall, in the fall league. And it was the same way. We played one-night game. There was probably 7,000 people at the Peoria Sports Complex. And the next day, we had a game in Scottsdale. And they were retiring Michael's basketball jersey in Chicago the next day, so he wasn't going to be there. So we played the next day, and I'm telling y'all, there's probably 150 people there. So we went from 7,000 the night before to 150. That made us feel real good as pro players that people were coming to watch us.
Yeah.
And anyway, we knew it was all about Michael. And so that was 94. I had a real good year. I can tell you, I'm probably the only person that got the MVP on a team that Michael played on. So I was voted MVP that year, 94. It was surreal. And then going into the next year, they promoted me to Nashville, AAA. And I was the number 1 prospect for the White Sox of Baseball America going into that team that year. And the reason I tell you that is because I started the season, I think, 3 for 35. And my mindset, for those first 35 at-bats is I'm the number 1 prospect. I got to prove everybody that I belong, And it affected my performance. And my manager was Rick Rennick. He had a lot of experience, obviously, coaching players, and he helped me. And we went to Oklahoma City. I think that for a weekend series, I think I went maybe after going 3 for 35. I think I went 8 for 10 or 8 for 12, and I ended up playing all year, and I got second in the league in hitting. So I tell kids that I train now that it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And that's what I'm saying. The Lord used so many, and continues to do that. Obviously, as y'all know, failures. We look at failures. Why me? But it's the Lord working on us and just giving us experience to prepare for the next one. And anyway, that 95 season, I finished second in the league in hitting, got called up to the White Sox at the end of August, and basically stayed up there for the next 3.5 years. I got to sit down a couple times, but most of my time was in the major leagues. Through 98, I got traded the last month to the Red Sox. They needed somebody to back up Nomar, and a guy named John Valentin in the infield. They traded for me. And my time was running out with the White Sox. I was with them from 92 to 98. And there was other guys coming up. And so it was my time was, we were playing at the Orioles and at Camden Yards, and the coach brought me in and said, Chris, we traded you to the Boston Red Sox. And I didn't know what to do, guys, because, all I knew was the White Sox.
Yeah.
And so from that point, I went from a prospect to a suspect. I tell people that. And so I got traded to the Red Sox, and within 2 months, they sent me down to AAA, and I spent the next 4 years trying to get back up. And I had chances. People told me that I was the next name. I was going to get getting called up. But I spent the next 4 years playing AAA and made some good money. It was a lot of good fun. I played baseball, and that's what I wanted to do. And so my life in '98 started to change. '95, I got married. '98, we had our first child, Kate Russell. And so we were starting a family. And so then in 2000, if you want to hear my journey, in 2000 I signed with the Royals in spring training because I was coming off a real good year with the Reds in '99. So I signed with the Royals thinking I could make the big league team because I knew that they didn't. I knew there was opportunity. And what I didn't know is that the Lord was going to use that spring training, to lead me to Him. There was a guy named Mike Sweeney that was playing first base for the Royals. He and I were good buddies, and I didn't know anything about Orlando or Baseball City where spring training was for the Royals. And he actually told me to get an apartment like a short-term apartment during spring training next to him. I did that. I rode to spring training in the morning with him a lot. He would be playing Christian music, and I didn't know the Lord at the time. And I wanted to hear rock and roll or some rap, and I didn't want to hear Christian music. But that was the Lord working on me. And about 3 weeks later, my wife started going to a Bible study. John Smoltz, in Orlando at the time, guys, they had Atlanta, they had Houston, they had Kansas City. They had some teams, Cleveland Indians, that would train in that area for spring training. And there was a guy named Tim Cash who did chapel for the Braves and John Smoltz, and so Smoltz would fly him down once a week to hold Bible study.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know that about Smoltz, and he would have it at his house that he'd rent or that he had in Orlando, and the wives would do the same thing, and so my wife got linked up with that, and she gave her life to Christ the night before I did. I didn't know it. But I tell people we were playing the Yankees in Tampa on a Tuesday night, and had a good game. And the next day, the Royals brought me in and said, "Chris, we're going to send you to minor league camp." When you go to spring training, especially as the big leaguers, most guys will get invited to big league camp, right? And then if you get demoted, they'll send you to minor league camp. Basically, like in the movies, you either get cut, fired, or you get, demoted to minor league camp. And so after that next night, we're playing the Yankees. The next day, they demoted me to minor league camp, and I said, "Look, I think you have 72 hours to report." I said, "I need my time to report. I need to think about this." And so I went home and I was pouting, and my wife said, "Well, I'd love to talk about it, but I have to go to Bible study." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I just got demoted." She goes, "Well, I just need to do this." And she goes, "Oh, by the way, can you babysit a bunch of 5-year-old babies for me?" Because I think there were other couples that were, the moms were going to Bible study, and somebody needed to watch the kids. So I'm like, "I'll do it, I guess, sure." So I tell people in my testimony that I went from playing against Derek Jeter on a Tuesday night, and the next day I was babysitting a bunch of 5-year-old kids.
What was easier?
Oh my gosh! But that's how, to me, that's how life can humble you, right? You can't take anything for granted.
Yeah.
And really, giving God the glory and all. Anyway, so that day after I was watching those kids, I went to lunch with Tim Cash, and he talked to me about priorities, and he asked me what are my priorities, and we wrote it down, and I realized that I was not glorifying God with my life or everything I did, even my family and my marriage. And I felt like, everything I was doing was just running into a dead end. I got demoted again to minor league baseball.
Wow.
What was me? And so I gave my life to Christ, and I spent the next 5 hours reading the Bible. I grew up Catholic, and I loved, Catholicism, but I didn't know Jesus.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I did that, and I asked the Royals for a release. They released me, and then I ended up signing with the Mariners and went to Seattle or AAA's in Tacoma. And I had a really good year. And I think the next year I played with Cardinals, and that was my last year. In the meantime, in 2001, I started a business here in Jackson called it performance sports. A lot of people, I come home, guys, and in pro ball, you get paid, unless you're, in the big leagues and you're making all that money. Minor leaguers usually get paid, from spring training. You get paid every week in spring training, but, you really get paid starts April 1st until the season ends. And then in the off season, they don't pay you. You got to figure out how to make money.
Uh-huh.
And so I would come home and people would ask me to hit with a kid, and I'm like, sure, I need to make money. I got to help my family. And so I did that, and it got so busy. I'm like, this can be a business. And I met a guy named Chris Waterhouse. He played in Mississippi State and Ole Miss, and he was doing somewhat of this kind of business in Memphis. And we started a company called Performance Sports in 2001. In Flowood, Mississippi, people told us this is an absolute joke. It's never going to work. And we were young, man, and we were hunting for food, man. That's all we knew is we knew baseball, we could teach it, and we could help kids. And then in 2003, he ended up getting married, I think, or recently, or around that time, and moved to Nashville, and we bought his percentages of ownership, and it's been doing it for the last 20 years here in Jackson. And we changed the management here about 7 years ago. A guy named Tommy Johnson kind of joined us. He joined us and really helped our business acumen foundation. And Lord's used it to where we got 2 locations in Jackson. We've got one in Hattiesburg. We got one in Ocean Springs. We have one in Auburn, and we have 2 in Birmingham. And so we started the business, and just going back to pro ball, I retired. I got released by the Cardinals in 2002, and the Cubs asked me to, if I would sign with them, and I was just ready to go, guys. I mean, we'd already have our second child, Christopher, in 2001, and I just wanted to be around them. Yeah. When you're playing pro sports, you're on the road a lot, and I was just ready to shut it down and kind of just work day to day and be in the same town for at least 2 weeks out of a month, and so I started the business, and like I said, it's blossomed into this, and the Lord has used it. We started the business to help guys just learn the game and get better in baseball, and really kind of help guys if they get a chance to play college baseball. We wanted to help them with that, and then as y'all know, youth baseball has changed so much that I'd say around 2008 and 9. We were training people just so they can make the high school team. You got Madison Central or even West Jones. I'm thinking schools around y'all's area, Oak Grove. They'll have, 30, 40 kids as a freshman tryout for a baseball team.
Wow.
And they can only keep, 15 to 18. And so it's becoming such a competition now just to get on the high school team. And it's really kind of taken off our business. And we don't personally partner with high school coaches, but we do what we can to help them out as far as, helping them train, any players that don't make a team, that they'll send them our way, or that was kind of how it was. And now we've got teams. We have youth teams. We have high school teams, and we try to just, really, verbally partner with the high school coaches like Trey Sutton and, Larry Knight is with us now full time. But, you got all those really good coaches in this area that's so good at keeping the game and influential with these kids. We have teams that play in the summer as far as high school. Well, the youth will play 10 months out of the year. They won't play 10 months out of the year, but we partner with them for 10 months out of the year. So that's kind of our big core business now, on top of the training. That's kind of where we are now. I live in Madison, and I travel around to help guys develop the business model. We've got a lot of good guys that love the Lord, but also have a good baseball background that want to make this a full-time job. And it's like what you guys, anything in life's hard.
Yeah.
Nothing's easy.
It's a labor of love.
It is. It's a labor of love. It's, as you guys, when we started this business in 2001, there was nothing like this. Now you probably have, 3 or 4 training centers in each city. And whether it's basketball, baseball, or even football or soccer.
Chris, let me talk to you just a second. And I hate to be rude. I hate to do this to you, man. You're such a good interview, and you got so much to say. We're out of time. But let me say this.
No, it's okay.
Let me say this. I've been greatly encouraged by your faith and your stand on Christ. That's so encouraging and so well needed today. And that's just like Lanyap right here for us today when you moved over to that. And we appreciate what you do for kids and your exhibition of your faith, because I know not only are you impacting them in the game of baseball, but you're impacting their life choices too, and we salute you in that. Listen, I'm going to ask you to hang on. We're going to take a break and go to a commercial. I'm going to ask you to hang on with us, and we'll talk to you right after this break. We want to thank you for being with us tonight. But you hang on. We're going to talk to you off there for just a minute. But Dale and I are going to take a break to go hear from one of our sponsors, and we'll be back for tonight's final segment right after this break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back to tonight's final segment. It's going to be kind of a brief one. I tell you what, he doesn't have trouble telling his story, does he?
No.
What a great guy, man of faith, and I'll tell you what, he's impacting lives on a daily basis, and you can't do much better than that for the glory of our Lord and Savior.
Yes, sir. I think that we need to end with him because he just had a great message.
I think so, too. That having been said, what time is it?
It's time to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale, and we'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.